That evening, as the city began to quiet down, the skies above were painted a soft shade of deep blue. The warm lights from homes flickered gently, and distant cars hummed along the road. Jae-jo rolled up in front of his house. The building stood there silently, motionless under the dim glow of the street lamp. No sounds came from inside. The windows were still, the porch lights glowed, but the air felt oddly still. He opened the door and stepped inside. For a moment, it seemed like no one was home, but then he was greeted by a sharp, serious voice. "You're finally back?" Standing there, arms folded, eyes narrowed, was his younger brother Jo-K. Though younger in age, Jo-K always acted like the older sibling. His expression was stern, almost parental. "You shouldn't be out this late," he began, already halfway into a lecture. "I know what you're doing, Hung. You're still messing around with that bike, aren't you?" Jae-jo didn't respond. "Have to start taking things seriously," Jo-K continued, walking across the room with tight, scolding steps. "College is coming. You need to focus. You need to grow up a little. Stop wasting time riding like some street punk. When will you start thinking about your future?" There was a weight in his words, seriousness that didn't match his age. For a moment, Jo-K really did sound like a wise adult, mature, responsible, strict, but then something changed. From the living room, a familiar sound chimed from the TV. "Meow, meow, it's kitty time." The colorful jingle echoed through the house. And instantly, the maturity dropped from Jo-K's face. His eyes lit up. His expression softened into pure joy. "Oh, it's starting," he shouted with excitement, and sprinted toward the TV like a 5-year-old. All that lecture, all that wisdom, it vanished. He flopped down onto the floor, eyes wide, as cartoon cats danced across the screen. "So cute," he whispered, clapping his hands like a child at a petting zoo. Jae-jo just stood there, watching the complete transformation of his little brother with blank amusement. He shook his head slightly and turned away. He walked into the bathroom. The light above the mirror flickered on. He stood there quietly, looking at his own reflection. He slowly brought his hands to his face, then looked down at them, still a little scraped. Still sore from the race earlier, his mind wandered. Images from earlier flashed in his thoughts like a reel of film. The slope, the wind in his face, the furious speed. Kims, taunts, the drift, the crash, the finish line, and then the silence that followed. What was this feeling? He touched the mirror lightly with his fingertips. It wasn't just adrenaline. It wasn't simple joy. It wasn't even anger. It was something in between. Something he'd never felt before. He couldn't name it, but whatever it was, it stayed with him. The morning sun rose quietly over the city. Light poured through the clouds and bathed the streets in pale gold. A new day had begun. Outside the house, Jae-jo stepped out with his bike. Like always, he pulled it toward the sidewalk, but as soon as he looked down, he noticed it. The rear tire. It was still damaged from the intense race with TJ Kim. The rubber was scraped, the wheels slightly bent. He stared at it for a moment, but instead of reacting, he just muttered under his breath, "I'll fix it later." Without any care, he mounted the bike and began pedaling toward school just like every other morning. Elsewhere, the city bus was stuck in its usual morning traffic. Inside was packed with commuters, students, office workers, tired parents. The air felt heavy with frustration. Some people were sighing loudly, others checked their phones. Everyone knew what this was. Rush hour. Mia sat quietly by the window, her cheek resting on her palm. Her school bag was on her lap. The bus hadn't moved in 5 minutes. From the front, someone grumbled, "This road is always like this." Another muttered, "We'll be late again." But then, as the bus remained stuck in place, something outside caught their attention. A blur, slicing through the stillness. It was JJO on his bike. He zoomed past the cars, riding in between lanes with perfect balance and speed. His hoodie blew back in the wind, his face calm, focused, unreadable. He didn't look left or right. He was one with the road. People inside the bus turned their heads. Some gasped, some stared in disbelief. Is he the same guy from yesterday? He's so fast. Should I get a bike too? Even Mia found herself mesmerized by the sight of him. She couldn't look away. There was something effortless about how he moved, something rebellious, something cool. Back on the road, Jae-jo kept pedaling. He felt the wind pushing past his ears. He didn't care about traffic. He didn't care about his busted tire. He was in motion, and that was enough. Then, a voice called out from behind, "Hello, boy." It was deep, cheerful, and full of energy. Surprised, Jae-jo glanced back into his shock. He saw a man on a bicycle catching up. Not just any man. An elderly man. Riding comfortably, like he'd done this 1,000 times. He had silver hair tucked under a helmet and wore glasses. His posture was upright and balanced, and that's when it hit Jae-jo. It was the principal of his school, riding a bike to school effortlessly, with a grin, like it was just another day. As the morning traffic flowed, Jae-jo continued pedaling toward school, the city passing by in a blur. Beside him, the older man riding with smooth confidence kept pace, his expression calm and composed. The elderly cyclist glanced over, still smiling. "You never wear a helmet, do you?" he said, not with scolding anger, but with gentle concern. Jae-jo turned and gave a polite nod. "Good morning, principal." Yes, this man wasn't just any random cyclist. He was the principal of their school. Someone Jae-jo had known for a while, not only as a student, but as the student council president. There was a sense of respect between them, something that had formed over years of quiet interaction. "Fast," the principal added, "but speed doesn't keep you safe." Still pedaling, he continued speaking, his tone calm, measured like someone who had seen a lot, and knew when to give advice without pushing too hard. "I'm not here to yell at you, Jay," he said. "I know you're smart, but remember, on the road, cyclists aren't special." Jae-jo glanced forward. The principal went on. "Cars drive in bike lanes. People walk on sidewalks that were never built for us. Out there, you're on your own." His voice carried a tone of wisdom, not fear, not authority, just experience. "Be careful," he added. "I'd hate to see you end up underneath someone's wheels." And with that, the two of them rode in silence for a few more minutes, until the school gates came into view. At the front entrance of the school, a small commotion was unfolding. A boy with messy hair, wearing a baggy hoodie and clutching a skateboard, stood surrounded by a few other students. His name was Lee Hurong, and he had a bit of a reputation: cocky, loud, always pushing boundaries. A teacher on gate duty was lecturing him, clearly frustrated. "You again, Lee Hurong? What did I even do?" He smirked. "You were skating down the hall last week, AGAIN. Around him were other students who had already been punished for minor offenses: hair dye violations, missing ties, untucked shirts. Lee Hurong seemed unfazed, like none of it really mattered to him. But then, at that moment, Jae-jo and the principal arrived at the school entrance. The tension shifted instantly. The teacher stiffened, but to everyone's surprise, the principal just looked over at the group, raised an eyebrow slightly, and said calmly, "IT's a new day, isn't IT?" He then looked directly at Lee Hurong. "Try behaving a little better tomorrow." Just like that, he waved off the punishment. The students were free to go. The crowd murmured in surprise. Even Lee Hurong blinked in disbelief. The teacher on duty stepped closer and whispered to the principal, "It's flag ceremony day today." The principal nodded. Then, without missing a beat, he pulled out his phone and tapped on the school's messaging app. To the student council members, including Mia, he sent a casual message in slang. "Yo, set up that flag thing ASAP, LOL." And with that, the school day officially began. In the hallways, things were back to normal. Dom-kong, ever the jokester, tried to flirt with Yuna again. She rolled her eyes, clearly used to his antics, and responded with her usual sarcasm. Around them, students chatted, lockers slammed, and the building buzzed with energy. In another corner of the school, "Manhwa, you found Jae-jo by his classroom window, hey," he said casually, stuffing his hands into his pockets. "I saw the video from last night." Jae-jo didn't say anything, still focused on his notes. "That drift," Manhwa continued, shaking his head. It was insane. He wasn't mocking, he was genuinely impressed. But Jae-jo, as always, stayed quiet, letting the compliment pass like wind in the trees. Later that afternoon, as classes ended and the sun began to dip slightly in the sky, students started to leave. Outside the school, Dom-kong rushed up to Jae-jo, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Why? Oh," he said, "let me borrow your bike just for a second." But Jae-jo said nothing. He mounted his bike, gave a small push, and started riding off, Dom-kong behind with his arms still raised. "Hey, I'm serious," he shouted after him. But Jae-jo didn't even look back. On the quiet road home, the sky starting to turn orange, the city glowing under the afternoon light, Jae-jo pedaled alone, his expression calm. Then, from somewhere nearby, he heard someone call out, "Hey, is that you?" The voice was familiar. Jae-jo turned slightly, confused at first. The person approaching looked different. For a second, he didn't recognize him, but then he saw the face clearly. The bruises, the bandages, the intense stare. It was TJ Kim. He was walking slowly, still hurt from the crash, but upright, steady. "Took me a while to realize," TJ Kim said, his voice firm. "You look different with glasses." And with that, the tension returned. The road was quiet, the city was watching, and the story wasn't over. As J-Jo pedaled slowly down the road, lost in thought, the quiet was suddenly broken. From the side, 3 figures stepped out, blocking his path. Leading them was TJ Kim, his expression dark and filled with anger. At his side were 2 of his School Mountain crew members, silent, but clearly backing him up. TJ Kim stood firm and stared at J-Jo. "Do you even remember me?" he asked, his voice low but shaking with restrained fury. "You really made me angry?" J-Jo, completely unfazed, looked up from behind his glasses. Calm as ever. "Who are you people?" he replied flatly. That one sentence, so simple, so disinterested, was like gasoline on fire. TJ Kim's face twisted with rage. Without another word, he lunged forward and with all his strength, kicked J-Jo's bicycle, sending it crashing to the side with a loud metallic thud. J-Jo, reacting without hesitation, punched TJ straight in the face. But that was only the beginning. TJ's 2 friends jumped in instantly, and what followed was a short but brutal fight. 3 against 1, blows landed fast. Even though J-Jo had thrown the first punch, he couldn't stand up to all 3. He was overwhelmed. He was beaten down on the ground. Bruised and breathless, J-Jo had lost. From across the street, Kang had just finished school and was walking home when he spotted the scene. His eyes widened when he recognized J-Jo, surrounded, bloodied, and beaten. And the attackers, TJ Kim and his friends. Without thinking twice, Kang dropped his bag and stormed forward. He pointed directly at them. "Hey," he shouted. "You guys look full of energy. How about you try me instead?" TJ Kim turned, annoyed, wiping his mouth from the punch earlier. "You want to fight too, you clown?" he growled. But before he could charge, one of TJ's friends grabbed his arm and leaned in, whispering something in his ear. Whatever was said changed everything. TJ's expression stiffened. He paused. He looked at Kang again more carefully. This time, something had clearly clicked. A realization, a name he hadn't matched before. That guy. He's dangerous, his friend had warned. And just like that, the 3 from School Mountain backed off. Quietly, with muttered curses and bruised egos, they turned and walked away, leaving J-Jo crumpled on the pavement. Not far from there, MANHUA had been walking down the same street. He caught sight of TJ Kim and his crew walking away in silence. Then he saw something else. JJ owned on the ground, bruised and bloodied. His heart dropped. He rushed to him. "Hey, are you okay?" But J-Jo, despite everything, looked up at him with cold eyes. "Leave me alone." But MANHUA tried to help, reaching out. Jay cut him off again. "I said go away. Don't talk to me. Don't follow me. Don't get involved in this stupid mess." His words were sharp, distant, like a wall that couldn't be climbed. MANHUA, visibly upset, hesitated, but he understood. He stepped back just then. Kang, who had stood silently this whole time, sighed and looked at MANHUA. He felt bad for both of them. So in one sudden motion, Kang stepped behind J-Jo, raised his fist, and gave him a light punch to the side of the neck. It wasn't out of anger. It was just hard enough to knock him out gently. What the hell? MANHUA shouted. Caught Jay as he slumped over, unconscious. He looked at MANHUA casually. "Relax. I knocked him out just a little. I'm not mad." MANHUA blinked, confused. He wasn't going to let anyone help, said. Now, he doesn't get a choice. The 2 of them, still unsure where J-Jo even lived, began carrying him awkwardly and without a plan. But with the strange determination of 2 people who cared in their own odd ways, the streets were quiet again, and J-Jo, for once, was still. MANHUA and Kang stood on the side of the street, looking down at J-Jo, who was still unconscious between them. "Should we take him to a clinic or something?" MANHUA asked, crouching slightly, clearly concerned. "I don't even know where he lives," replied, just as confused. Before they could decide, a loud voice suddenly called out from the distance, "Jay!" Both of them turned to see where the shout came from. Standing at the end of a narrow alley was a young boy wearing glasses and carrying a school bag. J-Jo's younger brother. His face twisted in shock as he saw his brother lying motionless, flanked by 2 strangers. From his point of view, it looked like his brother had been beaten by 2 random punks. Frightened, J-Jo didn't run up to help. Instead, he stared for a second longer, then turned and ran away, choosing not to get involved. MANHUA and watched him go. "Hey, does he look familiar to you?" muttered. MANHUA narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, from his glasses and face, I think he's Jay's little brother." Without hesitation, The two of them chased after Joe K to explain. After catching up, Manhwa tried to speak first. Hey, wait up. We're not trying to hurt your brother. We're actually his friends. Joe K stopped, breathing heavily, but looked back with suspicion in his eyes. Why would he have friends like you? He never talks about friends. He doesn't need them. His voice wasn't just angry, it was distant, disappointed. I don't really care what he does. He chose to waste his time with bikes and getting into fights instead of studying. I've got my own life, Joe K added coldly. Still, he didn't stop Manhwa and Dom from carrying Jay back to his home. Inside the modest house, Manhwa and Dom laid Jay down on a couch. Manhwa had a serious look on his face as he gently applied a band-aid to a cut on Jay's face like he was performing a minor surgery. Joe K stood nearby, staring intently at them. After a few minutes, Manhwa turned to him, a bit uneasy. Why are you watching us like that? Joe K crossed his arms. Just making sure you're not lying. For all I know, you could be pretending to be his friends just to rob us. Manhwa's eyes twitched in frustration. Seriously, we carried him all the way here. Dom chuckled and tried to lighten the mood. He pointed to a framed photo on the wall showing a younger Jay with a big smile next to a man and an old bicycle. Is that him with his uncle or something? Before Joe K could answer, Jay began to stir. He slowly opened his eyes, blinked a few times, and looked around. Then, noticing Manhwa and Dom, he sat up suddenly, wincing in pain. Get out, Jay said coldly. I don't need you here. Leave. Manhwa's face tightened in disappointment. Dom, noticing this, muttered under his breath. You look just like Yuna when you're annoyed. Ben louder, Dom said. That's how you thank the people who helped you. Not very classy, President. Trying to change the awkward vibe, Dom grinned. Hey, how about we check his computer? Maybe he's hiding some adult videos on it. Before Jay could stop him, Dom was already opening the laptop. Manhwa quickly moved to hold Jay back. Whoa, easy, just let him look. The screen lit up nothing but educational videos, practice tests, study material. Ugh, this is the most boring computer I've ever seen in my life, Dom groaned. You seriously don't have anything fun? No games? No special content? Maybe we should download something for him, Dom joked, winking. Just then, Joe K walked back into the room, getting ready to leave for cram school, but he paused when he saw what they were doing and accidentally glanced at the screen, which was now thanks to Dom playing a random adult video. Joe K froze for a moment, his face completely blank. The room fell silent. Then, without a word, he turned around and left. After they left the house a bit later, Manhwa and Dom walked side by side down the road. For the first time in a while, they weren't arguing or cracking jokes. Instead, they shared a quiet moment, one that made their awkward partnership begin to feel a bit more like a genuine friendship. A strange, but solid connection had started to form between them. Night had fallen, and the members of the Zephyrus cycling team were gathered at an empty parking lot near the city outskirts. The place was buzzing with chatter, as riders from various neighborhoods stood around in groups, curious about the sudden and a mysterious call for a team meeting. The tension rose as TJ finally arrived. With a smug grin, he walked through the crowd and locked eyes with June, tossing a mocking laugh. So what's this? A secret emergency meeting called by our emotional little prince. June, already annoyed, fired back without hesitation. Is it really that weird? You do remember Manhwa's the one who founded this team, right? The crowd started, murmuring, glancing at each other as they processed the words. Suddenly, the murmurs were cut off by the heavy sound of footsteps. Manhwa had arrived. His face was sharp, dark with restrained fury. He didn't even bother speaking. Without warning, he removed the ring from his finger, something he always wore as a personal symbol, and stepped forward. Grack. He punched TJ straight across the face. Hard. TJ stumbled backward, hitting the ground with a thud. The crowd gasped in shock. No one moved. For a split second, everything froze. What the hell, Manhwa? Someone shouted. Stop it, both of you. Another added. Even June, who knew Manhwa better than anyone, was taken aback. What was that for? Manhwa, breathing hard, stood tall. You want to know why? Because he humiliated us. He humiliated the entire Zephyrus team. The group stayed silent. He beat someone up just because he lost a match. Manhwa continued, voice trembling from anger. We raced to get better, not to throw tantrums like children when we lose. TJ, now standing back up and wiping blood from his mouth, snapped back. He hit me first. The mood shifted. Eyes turned to Manhwa, confused. Some looked unconvinced. That's when TJ began his psychological game. He stepped forward, speaking louder now. And this is our leader. Calls us in the middle of the night with no explanation. Hits me in front of everyone without hearing my side. Do we really want someone like that leading us? A few of TJ's friends joined in, adding fuel. He always acts like he's better than everyone else. He only cares when he wants to. He plays favorites. The crowd's energy turned. Doubts spread like wildfire. A few heads nodded in agreement. You clenched his jaw, refusing to back down. But the atmosphere had shifted. Then TJ took it a step further. You want to prove who's right? Let's do this. A 3 versus 3 race. Losers leave the team. The crowd responded with surprise and excitement. But Manhwa responded calmly, yet firmly. Fine, but I don't need 2 more. I'll race alone against you 3. A ripple of gasps went through the crowd again. June immediately stepped up. No way, you're still recovering. I'm racing with you. The crowd turned to see who would join the 3rd spot on their team. Silence. No one moved. No one volunteered. Some looked away. Others just watched with uncertainty. It was clear no one else was willing to stand with Manhwa. June looked around in disbelief, scoffed, then turned back to TJ. We'll go as 2. Just the 2 of us. 2 versus 3. That's all we need. The challenge was set. The stakes were clear. And now, all eyes were on the starting line.